ladies, listen to me, there comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes no one's coming, not that man, not that friend, not even that family member, and in that moment she has two choices: break down or build up. This is the story of the woman who looked in the mirror and said, enough. I'm done waiting. It's time to become who I needed. If you've ever felt alone, betrayed, overlooked, or underestimated, then this one's for you, step #1. No one's coming to save you. There comes a point in life, especially for a woman, when she realizes something that shakes her to her core. No one's coming to save her. Not her parents, not her friends, not her partner. No mentor, no stranger, no magical moment is going to swoop in and erase the pain, fix the mess, or rewrite the past. It's a realization that can feel like a gut punch, especially when you've spent years believing that if you just hold on long enough, someone will show up and make it all okay. At first, it hurts. It's disappointing. You grow up with this silent hope that one day someone will see your struggle and say, "Don't worry, I got you." But life doesn't work like that. People have their own battles, their own distractions. Sometimes they love you, but they don't show up for you, and sometimes they don't even see what you're going through. So what happens? You sit in your room, maybe with tears dried up on your face, looking at the ceiling like, what now? You replay conversations, rethink decisions, and ask yourself why no one noticed you were falling apart. Why no one stepped in when you were drowning. Why the help never came. That's when the shift begins. You start to understand that waiting is a trap, that hope without action becomes a prison. You start to understand that if you don't pick yourself up, no one will. You stop expecting someone to call and check in. You stop relying on others to validate your worth or remind you who you are. Because somewhere deep inside, that tiny voice you've been ignoring whispers, it's you. It's always been you. And when that voice gets louder, you begin to move differently. You stop chasing people who never cared enough to stay. You stop explaining yourself to people who never listened. You stop looking outside for answers to what's been burning inside you all along. You start figuring it out, piece by piece, step by step. Not because it's easy, but because there's no other choice. Step #2. Pain was her fuel. She didn't ask for the pain. Nobody does. It showed up uninvited, through heartbreaks, disappointments, betrayal, silence from people she once trusted, and the kind of loneliness that creeps in even when you're surrounded by a crowd. It came in waves, some soft, some violent, but every single one left a mark. And in the beginning, that pain almost broke her. It made her question everything about herself, her worth, her strength, even her reason for waking up some days. But over time, something shifted. See, pain has a strange way of becoming your teacher. At first, she resisted it, tried to avoid it, numb it, distract herself from it. She blamed people, blamed herself, even blamed God. But none of that brought peace. What finally changed things wasn't the absence of pain. It was her decision to stop running from it. She turned around and faced it, looked it in the eye and said, "Okay, if you're here, then teach me." And the lessons came, that betrayal. It taught her to trust herself more than empty words, that abandonment. It showed her that her own company was never lacking. That failure, it taught her that growth was more important than perfection. Every scar carried a story, and every story carried a lesson that shaped her into someone tougher, wiser, more grounded. She started using the pain the same way fire uses wood, not to burn down, but to burn bright. She woke up earlier, stayed up later, started moving different, not because she wanted to prove a point to the world, but because the pain lit something inside her that comfort never could. Comfort had her settling. Pain pushed her to evolve. It gave her a reason to fight harder, think deeper, and love smarter. She became intentional. Her steps had weight. Her choices had purpose. She stopped complaining and started creating. She didn't need pity. She needed progress. And when people saw her glowing, growing, doing things they never expected, they didn't understand the fuel behind it all. They thought she got lucky, thought she had help. But what they didn't see were the nights she cried herself to sleep and still got up in the morning, ready to go again. What they didn't see was how she turned every painful moment into a stepping stone. Not because she wanted the pain, but because she refused to let it be for nothing. Step #3. She built herself in silence. She didn't announce it. She didn't post about it. There were no grand declarations, no "watch me now" captions, no dramatic exits or public comeback. She simply went quiet. Quiet in a world that's always screaming for attention. Quiet while everyone else was busy chasing applause, proving a point, showing off highlights, and masking pain with filters and fake smiles. She disappeared, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, from the places and people that drained her, from conversations that led nowhere, from people who only called when they needed something, from environments that didn't allow her to breathe, grow, or just be. Because silence gave her something the noise never could, clarity. In that silence she faced herself, without distraction, without pretending. She sat with the ugly parts, the parts no one claps for, the insecurities, the regrets, the bitterness she didn't want to admit she carried, the envy she hated feeling, the dreams she was too scared to speak out loud. She looked at all of it, and instead of judging herself, she decided to understand herself. There were no shortcuts in that season. No one clapped for her daily wins. No one knew when she broke down in the bathroom, wiped her face, and still handled her responsibilities. No one saw her journaling late at night, praying for strength, reading books to shift her mindset, listening to podcasts while doing dishes, researching new ways to heal. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't picture perfect. But it was real. She started making small decisions, ones that didn't make sense to anyone else, turning down invitations, setting boundaries, saying no without guilt, spending more time alone, healing her relationship with food, money, her body, and most importantly, her own voice. She didn't need validation anymore. She didn't need permission, because she realized growth doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. She built herself in that quiet season the same way a tree grows its roots, deep, hidden, but strong. Every day, brick by brick, she rebuilt who she was, not based on who others wanted her to be, but on who she knew she was born to become. She created routines that protected her peace, habits that aligned with her purpose, goals that lit a fire in her, and all of it happened in silence. While the world was watching someone else, she was watching herself, studying her patterns, breaking cycles, forgiving old wounds, letting go of things that didn't serve her. She didn't need to prove she was evolving. She just needed to feel it. She became consistent, focused, and intentional, not because someone was keeping score, but because she finally was. Step #4. From victim to visionary for a long time, she carried the weight of what happened to her. The pain, the betrayal, the disappointments, they became part of her story, part of how she introduced herself to the world. Not because she wanted to live in the past, but because she had been stuck in it. She replayed those memories, those conversations, those moments where life knocked her down and no one helped her up. And somewhere along the way, she started to believe that maybe this was just her story. Pain, survival, repeat. She wore the label, the one who got hurt, the one who got left, the one who got overlooked. And when you live in that mindset long enough, it starts to shape your choices. She played small. She second-guessed herself. She stayed quiet when she should have spoken up. She settled when she should have walked away. Because victims don't think in possibilities. They think in limitations. They see the world through a lens of fear, mistrust, and what if it happens again. But there came a day, maybe it wasn't loud or dramatic, maybe it was in the middle of a sleepless night or during a random moment in the car, where she got tired, not just tired of being hurt, but tired of being defined by it. She realized the pain was real, but so was her power, and that's when she started shifting. She stopped asking, "Why me?" and started asking, "What now?" That's what turned her from a victim into a visionary. She didn't erase the past. She reclaimed it. She went back to those painful moments and pulled lessons from them. She saw patterns and broke them. She stopped waiting for someone else to give her the green light and gave it to herself. She began to dream again, but this time her dreams weren't based on revenge or proving anyone wrong. They were rooted in peace, purpose, and freedom. Visionaries see what doesn't exist yet, and that's exactly what she did. She saw a version of herself that no one else could see, not even the people closest to her. She saw healing when others saw damage. She saw potential where others saw limits. She saw a future that felt too big for her old mindset, so she outgrew it. She read, she learned, she observed, not because she wanted to sound smart, but because she was building a new foundation. And here's what's wild. She stopped letting circumstances define her direction. She started moving based on vision, not wounds. She stopped reacting and started creating. She spoke differently, carried herself differently, and walked into rooms like she belonged there, because now she believed she did. Not because everything was perfect, but because her mindset had shifted from "life happens to me" to "I shape my life." She began leading herself, trusting her intuition, making bold moves, not reckless, not desperate, visionary. Every step she took, even the small ones, were aligned with the bigger picture she was holding in her mind. She stopped explaining that picture to people who couldn't see it because she realized they weren't meant to. That vision was hers, and she was finally strong enough to follow it. Step #5. Now she inspires others. People look at her now and think she's strong or she's confident, but what they don't see is why. They don't see the nights she cried herself to sleep while holding herself together during the day. They don't see the battles she fought in silence, internal war between who she used to be and who she was trying to become. They don't know the full story. They just feel the presence of someone who's been through hell and chose to rise from it anyway. She didn't set out to inspire anyone. That was never the goal. In the beginning, she was just trying to survive, trying to breathe, trying to figure out how to stop hurting so much. But in doing that, in fighting for herself, in choosing healing, in choosing growth, she became living proof that transformation is real, that it's possible to be broken and still build something beautiful, that it's possible to start over at any stage of life and still become someone powerful. Now people look to her, not because she's perfect, but because she's real. They see someone who speaks with honesty, who walks with grace, who sets boundaries without apology. They see someone who carries her past without letting it weigh her down, someone who took the hardest chapters of her life and turned them into pages of wisdom. Women listen when she talks, not because she's the loudest, but because her words come from experience. She doesn't preach, she shares. She doesn't give advice from a pedestal. She offers it from the trenches she climbed out of. She's relatable, raw, and rooted, and that's what makes her inspiring. She's not trying to be a role model. She's just trying to be herself authentically, consistently, unapologetically. What's even more powerful is how she lifts others. Now, when she sees someone going through what she once endured, she doesn't judge. She sees them. She feels them. And because of that, she knows exactly what to say, when to listen, and when to simply be present. Her healing became a roadmap for others. Her strength became a mirror that showed other women what they were capable of too. She's the woman who doesn't compete. She empowers, she compliments, she supports, because she remembers what it felt like to walk through fire alone, and she made a silent vow that no woman in her presence would ever feel like they have to do it by themselves. Again, her light doesn't dim others. It helps them see, it helps them believe, it helps them remember who they are. Step #6. She set her own standards. She stopped shrinking herself to fit into boxes that were never made for her. Stopped adjusting her personality, her dreams, her values just to be accepted by people who barely understood her. She realized that for too long she had been living by rules that weren't hers. Rules written by society, family, relationships, and even her past self. Rules that told her how to dress, how to speak, how to love, how to dream, all while dimming the very light that made her different. So she stepped back. She looked at her life like a blueprint someone else had scribbled on, and for the first time she asked, what do I really want? Not what looks good on paper, not what will make people clap, not what will make her more likable, but what aligns with who she truly is at the core. And from that question came a quiet revolution. She stopped tolerating disrespect, whether it was in relationships, at work, or within her own mind. She stopped giving people passes for mistreating her just because they were family, or because she didn't want to come off as difficult. She stopped ignoring red flags and calling it patience. She understood that standards aren't about being picky. They're about protecting your peace, your energy, and your future. She no longer needed someone else to tell her she was enough. She told herself over and over again until she believed it, until it echoed louder than every voice that ever made her feel less than. She started walking away from anything that felt forced, from conversations that drained her, from people who only reached out when they needed something, from situations that made her question her worth. Her standards became her filter. If it didn't bring clarity, peace, respect, or joy, it didn't belong. She didn't need to explain it. She didn't need to justify it. She just lived it. And what's powerful is how people started to respond. Some pulled back, some misunderstood, some even called her too much. But she didn't flinch, because she realized that setting your own standards will cost you certain relationships, but it will also return you to yourself. She started showing up as the woman she always needed to be, not to prove a point, but because she finally knew what she deserved. She dressed for herself, spoke her truth without watering it down, made decisions without needing approval, and held herself to a higher level, not to impress others, but to honor the journey she'd fought so hard through. She knew now she was the standard, and anything or anyone that entered her life had to meet her there, not drag her back. So now when you see her, standing tall, smiling deep, walking with that unshakable peace, just know she earned that. She wasn't handed strength. She built it out of every tear, every lonely night, every scar that tried to silence her. She didn't wait for someone to choose her. She became the woman she needed, the protector, the healer, the fire, the calm, and in doing that, she gave other women permission to do the same. Because when one woman rises, she doesn't rise alone. She lifts every single one watching her. Let them talk. Let them wonder. She knows who she is now, and that right there, that's her power, that's her legacy, that's her becoming.